Call the meeting back to order. We've got two items for public hearing, and the first is Middlesex County property lease with Tidewater Utility Construction. Charlie, are you on for that?
Yes, sir, I am. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This goes back to last month's meeting. As you know, Tidewater Utilities is the contractor for HRSD. HRSD requires their contractor to have a written agreement with the property owner for their laydown. And that's what this entails. We've already identified in last month's meeting the area there in front of the LC building. Granted, they start stockpiling materials.
I don't think so. You tap it.
Yeah, okay. And I'd just like to ask the board to vote to approve that, and then, of course, the document, Mr. Chairman, you would have to sign. Then we can start collecting $750 a month for lease.
So I think we approved it, and this was just the opportunity for public hearing on it, is that right?
I believe, is that correct?
You sent it,
We
you just-
approved it to go to
public hearing, yes, sir. So we'll have the public hearing, and then you can appropriately vote on it.
Very good. Thank you. And does anybody have questions for Charlie? Oh,
Charlie, I got just a couple questions. Did the school move their vehicles out the way so to be safer for the vehicles to be? Because I noticed that it seemed like the bus parked right up by the fencing and.
Well, they park on the opposite curb, and further down, I talked with the contractor, and I've talked with Dustin, with the school district, and Dustin said the contractor's not going to affect them. So I told Dustin, I said, as long as you understand, or the contractor, as long as he understands that if he damages his vehicle, he has to pay for that damage. So the contractor had no issue.
Okay.
So I did recommend that they park their vehicles over at the Polar Building, but apparently that's a shorter walk for them.
any other questions for Charlie? All right, I'll open the meeting for public comment. There not being anyone from the public in attendance, I'll close the meeting for the public hearing. And I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we consider the Middlesex County property lease to Tidewater Utility.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz is absent, and Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion's approved.
Could I ask a quick follow-up question? I didn't see anywhere on any of this projected lease period. Is that just we go as we go?
It should be for 1 year.
Oh, is it?
And
we
then-
would have to ratify that after that again?
We can, and we still need to work out if they're going to write us a check or if we withhold from their monthly pay apps.
I think we ought to do both, don't you?
Yeah,
Huh?
I think it'd be great.
Okay.
Double dip.
Retroactive to when they started in Logan.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be sending the emails out tomorrow, making phone calls.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next item, amendment to fees ordinance. Dave?
Good evening, all. Last month, I went over this briefly. This is an amendment to our planning and building fees. This is essentially the same thing. We did add in the 50 cents a square foot for the non-vegetated wetlands. And Matt and I got together on, you'll notice, and there's assessment fees in there that are associated with the assessment. When we get a building permit, you have to go out and do an assessment. Matt will probably have further discussions with you on that later, but we've added a fee in for that based on a submittal from Wampler. So that's the only addition in there that wasn't in from the last month's document that you guys read. So if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
just because I haven't fully recuperated from the last meeting that we had that lasted 8 hours. So I'm sure there's something that I either forgot or in my anticipation of it ending earlier than 8 that maybe I wasn't paying full attention. But that being said, I didn't see a whole lot of changes on your fee structure.
Most of them were incremental, just
Right.
small. Where the biggest changes are in this proposal is with the things that require a public hearing. You know,
Yes.
anything like a special exception, those
Right.
rezonings. We added in just kind of another $100 because we weren't really, capturing back the advertising fees.
Right.
So we wanted to capture some of that money back because and recoup as much as that as we could. It's really hard to get, we talked about possibly doing a separate bill for each particular one, because the paper, what they do is they charge you for the space that you use, and you get the bill 2 months after probably the special exception's been approved, then you have to chase a applicant down to get them to back pay, and that's a nightmare. So you want your money, we want our money up front before we're going to consider an application, so.
Makes sense.
And I think, is the pump and haul application fee on here as well?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's been included.
Did we increase the tourist home one?
We did increase that as well.
That's another one.
And Mark's already started trying to get together, and he's going to redo the applications to reflect the new fees. We've also got a couple extra items in here, like stormwater. We're going to do a E&S review that's associated with a major site plan, so that, because a lot of times we don't have a process or a checkbox or even a file to put that in, and DEQ doesn't release their authorization under the general construction permit until we authorize land disturbance to make sure the plan is okay, or the plan is amenable to DEQ as well as us. So that's another item in there. It's another layer in the site plan review process. So we'll have another application for that most likely. So, and that's just a function of what's happened the past few years between DEQ and the county.
Do you know when we'll have the applications all revised?
Some of them are going to be up and running probably tomorrow. Some of them may be a little bit, longer. The ones that are used the most, we want to get up there, post them as quickly as possible. Some of them aren't used as frequently, so.
Any other questions for Dave? I'll open the meeting for public hearing on this. There being no one in the audience from the public, I'll close public hearing.
I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to adopt the revised planning and building fee ordinance as presented by Mr. Kretz.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. Motion carries. That concludes our public hearing. Have we sufficiently addressed the follow-up regarding the land acquisition that we discussed at the end of last meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Walker went over it on his screen, and my understanding is IT was able to stream that. In addition to that, we'll have the packet updated, hopefully we should be able to do that by tomorrow. We have a readable now version of the survey.
I also called Larry on our way to dinner recess and left a message for him, letting him know.
So to that end, as Ms. Muncy pointed out, now you need to appropriate the money so that you can go forward with that purchase. And I believe it's for $300,000. And then there might be some ancillary costs with closing, but it will be very minimal.
So check my language here. So I will entertain a motion to appropriate $300,000 for the acquisition of 6 acres plus or minus.
From fund balance.
from fund balance
300,000 to include closing costs.
to include closing
Or
costs.
with closing costs, excuse me. Excuse me, with, because it won't, the closing costs will be in addition to the 300,000.
For
Sorry.
clarity, the purchase will be $300,000 plus closing costs.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I so moved, not that you want me to say it all over again.
Motion by Mr. Jesse,
Second.
second by Mr. Harris. Any more discussion?
Yes. Just for the public record, Mr. Administrator, would you clarify why we are purchasing this additional property, please?
Yes, sir. It was a strip of property between the 8.5 acres that was being donated and the property line with the campground. And the idea would be we would buy this and make one solid piece to not have a strip of land that was basically landlocked by our land and the campground's property, and also give us some flexibility about possibly offering up future offerings on that property that could complement the campground.
Thank you, Matt. Follow-up question, and so that, if my math is correct, gives us about, what, 13 acres now, combined with the original 8 and now the 6 that we purchased? Am I right on the math?
Yeah, from the original parcel, the Banky Knuckles parcel, that's
Correct.
definitely correct, yeah.
So now we have a total parcel of somewhere roughly about 14 acres? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that will be added on to the county's tract of land that made up Hummel Field before.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. Motion carries. Any other business?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second and third.
And just a reminder, before you vote on that, y'all have a work session with the school board on the 10th to talk about the high school renovations.
And that's at 5 o'clock
Yes, sir.
in
That's-
the
St. Clair Walker
Auditorium.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Correct? At 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
And drinks and cookies are on you, right?
You know it.
I heard you.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
I don't know how to act getting home.